Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 134 of the Dynasty Junkies podcast. Proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network and the DAP Network, if you will. And we love it here on the DAP Network. This is a fun one. We got our classic Thursday night lineup. If you're joining us on YouTube, feel free to leave some comments and ask some questions as we go along. If you're listening in your earbuds, love that too. Definitely send us a note on Twitter. Let us know what you think about the show. Tonight, though, with me in the co-host seat is the one and only Rocky Petrella. How are you tonight, Rocky?
I'm good. I guess I'm finally over my Super Bowl hangover. I can finally come back on the show.
I didn't want to ask it right away, but I was definitely going to bring it up at some point. This is your first show. I think your first show since the Super Bowl, right? It's been
yes, it
the
is.
Last few weeks.
I think it's been 2 or 3 weeks since I've been on. I appreciate you guys holding down the fort, but I am back. The Super Bowl, I've put it past me now. You know how badly we were robbed at the end, but.
If you haven't talked it out by now, you never will, right? We're in March. Like it's time that we move forward and look ahead. I love it. And I know going into that week, or 2 weeks actually for the Super Bowl, you were really hyped about your team. You still got to feel good, right? I mean, you're looking ahead. You're still looking like a pretty good spot to be in, right?
Yeah, definitely. The future looks bright. They're going to lose some guys on defense, but they got Hurts, Brown, Smith, Goddard all locked up for a couple years here. There's definitely another run in the future. So yeah,
I think so too.
It hurts because they were so close.
So close.
It's not even so much like they did that holding call lost in the game, even though you don't call that at the end of the game. It's that I wanted to see Hurts with 2 minutes left and see what he did. Like that would have been amazing, especially if he pulled it off. But I just wanted to see what would happen. And I think the nation wanted to see what would happen, and we didn't. Thank you.
Yep. Refs. Completely agree. And again, now, Rocky, you and I are bonded yet again because my Bengals had the same thing last year against the Rams. So I feel you, brother. I feel you. All right. Well, with us tonight, we've got a great guest. I'm very excited. We've got Justin Edwards from 4 for 4. Is there anywhere else you're working, Justin, or is it just 4 for 4? Start with that.
Mostly 4 for 4, really. I work with I do a lot of work with PFF, but that's more like back end kind of
behind the scenes
data collection stuff over there.
Terrific. Well, yeah, we're really glad to have you. I know you've been in the fantasy world a little while. I don't think I've heard you on a lot of podcasts though, so I'm excited to kind of get to pick your brain a little bit. So I guess before we get too deep, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself and just kind of what your experience and history is in fantasy if people aren't familiar with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I do a lot of offensive line work with 4 for 4. I do a little bit of dynasty work. I do some streaming articles throughout this season. I kind of just mess around with everything, honestly.
That's the way to be, man. That's way all of us are, right? Just kind of dabbling in everything. You can find Justin on Twitter at Justin_Redwords, which I like that because it's the R Edwards. Is that middle name R, I guess? Or is it just you like the color red because of the red hair?
Just red. I'm real red. Just the color.
I like it. All right. Well, our topic for this evening is the same topic we've had for the last few weeks. We're kind of going through pretty much every fantasy relevant player with this series. This week, we've got the AFC South that we'll be looking at and trying to dive into. I guess the place we always start with this in general, AFC South is not one of the more, flashy divisions. It's not, there's a lot of teams in this division that are kind of in a massive rebuild or turning around a team. There's a lot of coaching changes and things like that. So it should make for some interesting conversation here. But we're going to talk about dynasty buys, sells, and holds for each team, kind of looking at all the fantasy relevant players and at least trying to break down where we feel like there are some things we can exploit, some loopholes we can maybe help out with, or values that we think are going to be changing as we head into the draft season. And then, of course, into the 2023 NFL season. So we're going to start with the Jaguars, finishing obviously the first in the AFC South. Pretty good run into the playoffs. I think they were a very impressive team, if I'm being honest. Their top fantasy players ranked by cap hit, which I like that we do that. That was a Sidlow edition. Gotta love it. Wide receiver Christian Kirk, most expensive player on the roster. That's interesting. Wide receiver Calvin Ridley, second most expensive player on the roster. That's interesting. Third most expensive wide receiver Zay Jones. What? And then there's QB Trevor Lawrence, our running back Travis Etienne, and then Snoop Connor I put on there because I think he's going to be relevant this year. I kind of thought he might have been last year. Their only real free agent of note for fantasy anyway is Evan Ingram, and there was some news that kind of, quote unquote broke today that they're tempted to franchise tag Ingram. I think that'd be an interesting move, but I guess, Rocky, I'll kick it to you first. Is there anyone on the Jags that you're definitely buying right now due to their price, or is everybody kind of at the right spot and you're not really ready to pounce yet?
The one that I kind of sticks out maybe a little to me, because I still don't think his price has really risen yet, is Calvin Ridley. I think that he's definitely going to increase in value, especially as we get closer to the season, or for sure in season if he starts playing well. But I still don't think people are valuing him super highly. You can probably get him for maybe a single second, 2 seconds, something like that. And he still has, I mean, I'm a little worried about him. I'm always worried about a guy who hasn't played for almost 2 years.
Right.
But we've seen the upside with him. Trevor Lawrence has looked obviously a lot better last year, removed from Urban Meyer. He could easily take over as the number one, target getter in this offense. And he's got pretty, they're not amazing players around him, and Evan Ingram and Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, but enough to take some pressure off of him. And Doug Peterson's a pretty good offensive coach. I think he could end up being the one there if he can get back into into form. And he's, like I said, he's going to increase in value if nothing else. I still think even if you don't really buy into Calvin Ridley as a point scorer this year, as getting back to his old form, you just know once we kind of see him in the preseason, see videos of him and see him working out and all that stuff, that he's going to be worth more than just whatever you're paying for him now. So he's the one that stuck out for me.
No, I agree. And he was actually going to be my buy too. And you kind of said it where I was going to go, is that he is just on DTC, which is the one I have open here, Dynasty Trade Calculator. He's worth, give or take, the 207 by himself. I would rather have Ridley than the 207 in almost every situation. So if his price is that low, that's a buy. Justin, where are you at with Ridley? And then what kind of, are you looking at buying anyone else on the Jags here?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm not huge into buying Ridley right now, just because I really like the way Zay looked last year. I think he's going to eat into that target share a little bit too. It might be kind of like a weird, these three guys are just going to be like 65% of the target share or something. But I do agree that, I mean, if Calvin Ridley does anything, he's going to be worth more than a 207 now. So, I mean, even if you're just buying for the value, I think that's a good buy.
Yeah. I mean, any other players that you're buying then, if not Ridley?
Man, I hate to buy at his peak, but kind of Evan Ingram, if you're in a lot of like tight end premium leagues like I am. I think he could kind of replicate what he did last year, and that's valuable enough in a really crappy position. But I don't know what you're paying for Evan Ingram. Maybe just a hold, honestly.
Yeah. And I think too, with this news today of Evan Ingram being franchise tagged, I mean, I could see that moving the needle for some players where they're like, okay, he's definitely staying there. They're going to be paying him a lot. They're going to be using him. And then the other narrative, of course, is, well, is he going to be fourth on the depth chart for targets behind the three receivers? I mean, there's a lot of question marks there. So as we always say, everything is about price, right? If Evan Ingram is something you can get as a throw-in or for a third or something like that, even in a non-tight end premium, I don't mind that, right? Like, just go get a guy that you can put on your bench. I liked what I saw in Ingram. I liked the way he finished the year. I liked the bond that he had with Lawrence. So I don't mind buying Evan Ingram if the price is right for sure. Rocky, I'll kick it back to you. Who would you say is your sell on this team? Is there anyone that you're kind of thinking that they're at their peak and you're ready to move off of?
There's nobody I'm dying to sell here. If I had to pick one, I guess it might be ETN. I don't think he's ever going to be like a workhorse back. And I was a little down on it compared to some coming in. I have to come around on him some after seeing what happened last year. He did perform pretty well at times. But he's never going to be, I think, that bell cow that we all really want. But he's definitely going to be a PPR asset. He's shown that already. And with Lawrence's improvement, it's helped him tremendously coming off the injury as well. So, but I think his value is pretty high right now. I don't know what he is if you plug him into a calculator, but I wouldn't mind maybe tearing down from him. And like I wouldn't mind, even though he's not going to probably start the year, although they've hinted he might. Like if I could get Javonte Williams plus or something like that, I wouldn't mind doing something like that with Travis Etienne. But he's the only one that I could even think of. Like I don't want to sell Lawrence. I'd rather just hold Lawrence. And most of the other guys don't have super high value. So.
Well, we are once again simpatico on this one, Rocky. I was going to say the same. Again, it's sell a running back season. Yep. I mean, that's what we always say. When in the offseason, it's time to sell. I have been trading for or sending offers for ETN just because I feel like some people may be overlooking him, and some of the news that just came out too, where Doug Peterson might be wanting to add another running back in the draft. That's all bluster at this time of year anyway. So it's kind of like maybe if you can get a discount, I don't mind buying ETN, but overall, by and large, yeah, I'm okay selling ETN. And it's funny you mentioned like what was he worth? I was definitely going to bring that up. Which would you rather have, Rocky, ETN or the 103 in Superflex tight end premium?
The 103 easily.
Easily, right?
Yeah,
like that's no brainer. And he is 31.8 in DTC. The 103 is 31. So he's actually over the 103, which blows my mind. So yeah, that's a sell. As much as I like ETN's talent, I think he's going to be a good running back on rosters this year. If you're telling me I can get out for a rookie quarterback, and most likely a rookie quarterback at the 103 that will have some longevity in a super flex league, hell yeah, sign me up. Justin, you on that same page? Or you got another guy you would rather sell?
My sell was ETN. Kind of the same reasons. I don't know that we're going to see a bigger workload than we already saw last year, and that was like 14 touches a game. Peterson talking about adding 2 or possibly 3 more people.
Oh yeah, that's right.
If you, especially for a 103 in a super flex, holy crap, I would much rather have that than
right. Send that off wherever you have ETN, folks. Just you never know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I could see him I was just thinking about this, following along sort of a DeAndre Swift track where we're all excited about him. We see some flash plays, but he's as time goes on, especially if they bring in a Jamal Williams type or something like that. That as time goes on, we realize he's just never, he'll have some big plays. He'll have some 5, 6, 7 catch games, but he's just never going to be that guy that we all want, that we all want him to be. So,
well, I mean, let's be honest, he could be,
call.
But odds are slim, right? Like everything is going to have to land the exact right way. And again, selling a running back this time of year is almost always the right answer because there's so many things that can change in the running back landscape between now and September. Again, I hate to say it, injuries tend to creep up. You've got, other battles that happen. We haven't even had the draft. So, yeah, I mean, I think selling a running back is always the right answer. It's kind of a cheat code for this sort of project that we're doing here. I guess I'll go first with my hold, and it's only because you kind of said it too, Rocky. I'm holding Lawrence. I kind of want to see what happens there. I think there is a chance that Lawrence last year and the way that season finished kind of cemented himself as a top 8, if not top 5 dynasty quarterback. There's still some wiggle room in there. I don't think he's in that top tier yet, but I want him on my roster this year. If I have him, I'm not moving him. I'm willing to just sort of write it out. I don't think I'm acquiring him because I think whoever rostered him is most likely wanting a lot for him. So yeah, if I have Lawrence, I'm holding, and I have him in, I think 2 leagues, and I'm fine to hold him just to be like, hey, I'm fine. I'm locked in at that QB2 position or QB1 in some leagues. I'm fine having him there. I think he's going to have a great year. I think the way that this offense is lining up with Ridley coming back, kind of coming back to this offense, even though it's the first time, but coming back to the field of play, I think is going to be entertaining. And even if they don't go get a massive running back or they don't draft anyone, like you said before, ETN's a PPR stud. He's going to have a lot of outfits, a lot of options. So I like Lawrence a lot this year, which was kind of what you said, Rocky. But is there anyone else you'd rather hold on this team in addition to Lawrence?
Maybe Evan Ingram. There's been talk that he's likely going to stay there in Jacksonville, that if they have to, they'll even franchise him to try and make sure they work something out. And I mean, we saw what he did last year, and just everything I said before in regards to Ridley too. I mean, it's a rising offense. Doug Peterson likes using the tight end. And Evan Ingram's always had the ability. It's just been a matter of staying healthy, I guess holding on to a few passes and having a quarterback. And it looks like he has all that now. So,
yeah. Justin, you on the same page? I know you kind of talked about buying Ingram, but you'd be fine holding him too, I would assume then, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really think he can replicate a lot of what he did last year, remain a red zone target. Maybe not another 70 reception season, but something similar to that.
Yeah. Anyone else you'd rather hold, or does that pretty much cover us on the Jags? I think it's an interesting team because it's kind of top heavy.
Yeah, that's probably, I mean, Snoop, I guess.
Yeah, hold Snoop, hold Zay Jones.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Those guys are not getting anything for. Those are always good hold candidates, right?
Right.
The value so low. What am I getting, a 4th? Yeah, I'll hold. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let me re-roll. I'm okay there. Yeah, I mean, again, I think just overall the Jags were an interesting team this year. And I think with everybody pretty much coming back and then adding Ridley to that mix, only means that they're going to get better, which is dangerous in the AFC. There's a lot of good teams in the AFC this year. So even though the AFC South is kind of rebuilding and retooling at large, I do think the Jags are I don't know, primed to win that division again, right? Primed to repeat. I don't think that'd be nobody would be shocked if the Jags repeat. So you definitely want some of those guys on your rosters. If they're going to win, your dynasty team's going to win. So that's generally how we go here. All right. So next up on the list, we've got the Tennessee Titans. Again, ranked by cap hit, their current kind of fantasy relevant players. QB Ryan Tannehill comes in at number 1. Oof. Number 2, running back Derrick Henry. Oof. Again, tight end Austin Hooper. Then you got Treylon Burks, Malik Willis, running back Hassan Haskins, Kyle Phillips. And then at the bottom, kind of what I considered relevant anyway, Chig Okonkwo kind of came out of nowhere last year for tight end premium leagues. And I looked, I really didn't see any free agents that were of relevance that were kind of, fantasy relevant, I guess. So again, if everybody is coming back and they add another receiver maybe in the draft, maybe they draft a running back to go behind Derek. I mean, this team could look the same, and I'm not sure that's a good thing. They weren't terrific last year. There's obviously a quarterback controversy, but Justin, I'll kick it to you first. Is there anyone on this, kind of weird-looking Titans team for fantasy that you're buying at the moment?
Not really.
All right.
You got to squint. Like maybe they give Malik some more run, but I mean, I'm not buying for that. Maybe if I took him last year for some reason,
Right.
I guess Okonkwo, but what are you buying him for? Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I can almost guarantee he's a free agent coming to Tennessee at some point, and they're definitely going to draft someone. So maybe we can look into them, but I don't know. It doesn't look great over there.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. And I guess, Rocky, I'll give my answer and kind of pitch it to you. Which would you rather have, Treylon Burks or the 107?
I'd rather have the 107.
I think a lot of people would rather have the 107, which in my mind, obviously, I think Treylon Burks is a little bit overvalued in DTC right now. I think Treylon Burks is my buy. I think there's a lot of people that are kind of done with him. They think this team is bad. They're squinting at it. I think if you can get Burks kind of as a throw-in, or like somebody's offering you a second and it's just not enough, maybe you say, take out the second and add Treylon Burks. Obviously more than a second. Like that adds a little bit to their side. You don't add anything, right? Something like those kind of trades. I think that can get done. And I think with the free agents that they might be adding, this team really can only go up. And we're going to say that a lot for the next hour as we go through the rest of these teams, because they're all pretty bad. But the Titans, even if Malik Willis does get a chance, I think Burks is going to be the guy at some point there. Even if they bring in, let's say they get Quentin Johnston or somebody who's like a solid X receiver, I still think Burks is going to be great on that team. So he's my buy. However, I'm gladly selling him for the 107, right? That's kind of where I was going to pivot and be like, he's my buy, because I think that's a little bit, that value's a little different. But if you can get him for cheaper than that, I'm glad to buy. Rocky, what would be your buy on this team?
I actually was looking. I don't know what people are selling them for, but given that we're in March, given that it's we hate old running back season, I don't hate the idea. You can get even like a very late first if you can get Derrick Henry, 111, 112. I think you're still getting one solid year out of him, one above solid, very good year out of him, as long as he can stay healthy. And I don't, the 111, 112, that's a crapshoot in any draft. I know this, everybody loves the 23 draft, but I just think that even though the offense doesn't project to be amazing, I still think Henry's going to get a lot of work. He's going to get a lot of volume. He's going to score touchdowns. When they do score, he's going to be the guy. So, and I don't think that's too big of a price to pay. And I don't think anybody really is expecting more than that at this point. So, a lot of people might be thrilled, like, oh, I can get out of Derrick Henry and get a first with the 111 or 112. So, I don't hate that idea. If you're definitely a contending team, if you maybe you're already an aging team and you have the 111 or 112 because you won it last year or win the title game, I don't mind throwing that out there and kind of picking up Henry just for the year and try and make another run at it.
I think that's a fine answer. And I think the way this team is built, it's not like they're one running back away and that's going to be their clear first-round pick. They've got so many holes. I don't see them moving away from Derrick Henry, especially with the kind of money they're paying him and everything too.
Yeah, it might only be 1 year, but I'm fine spending a 112 for 1 year of Derrick Henry if he performs, like a top 8 running back or something.
I'd be fine sending the 111, 112. I'm right there with you. But I'm curious, Rocky, if you can guess where Derrick Henry falls in terms of value for the first round picks.
I think
it's higher than the 111.
I'm cheating a little because I just listened to the most recent Dynasty Wall Street where they talked about he was in a list of guys they were talking about. I think he's somewhere near the 107.
107 is right, just like Treylon Burks. All of them have the exact same value.
Which that's nuts. I would not buy Derrick Henry for the 107.
Well, and this is kind of where it comes weird. Like both Henry and Burks, in my mind, are not worth the 107. I'd rather have the 107 over both of them. And so I think this is one of those where, in my mind, the values are different than the calculator, which is fine. This is just one data point. I'm not by any means saying,
and that's why calculators are always a guide. It's
it's a tool, and it's all about how you use it. I just think it's interesting because I agree with you. I think Derrick Henry has a lot of value. If I can send Henry and get the 107, I'm obviously happy to do that. I think if I have Henry, I can get the 108 or 109 or even 110. If someone, again, we're going to see things strangely happen in the draft, and then our rookie drafts are going to be crazy too. So if this is actually where I wanted to kind of pivot, Derrick Henry would be my sell, but not until we're on the clock, not until the draft picks are happening, because I think what you're going to find is there's going to be some polarization in this draft class. And I think you're going to start to see some players fall to the 108, the 109, 110 that I would probably rather have than Derrick Henry, but you may not. And at that point, I can kind of feel the room and be like, hey, I'll get you out of this pick while you're on the clock. You'll take Derrick Henry. And somebody might be there like, you know what? I'd rather have Henry. I think he's got good value. I wouldn't sell Henry right now because I think you're right. I think people are really only going to give up the 11 and 12. I'd rather wait a little longer. And like we always say, when you're in August, then you need running backs. That's the time to sell. But that's kind of a cop-out for me him to be my sell and also say not right now. But that's kind of where my head's at with this. Justin, I guess, what are your thoughts on Derrick Henry? And then, is he a sell for you too?
I mean, I think that's a very valid point. If you have the 111 or the 112, presumably you just contended for a title. So if you need running back help, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't try to get him for the 111, 112. But if he's going at the 107, I guess that doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, sell him if you can, depending on where your team's standing at. Like, if you can get a guaranteed fringe RB1, 2, and if you think you're a top 3 team in your league, I don't know why you'd want to sell them unless you really needed to. Yeah, I mean, I would try to keep him if I could.
Yeah,
it's always about the price, right?
Yeah.
Just looking in the trade finder, it seems like the values are kind of all over the place with him.
They are, and that's kind of what I was even going to pivot to next. Is that Derrick Henry is not necessarily polarizing, but it's just there's so many different ways to play this game. Some people don't mind older running backs. Some people really hate it. There's some vitriol in saying you hit your wall, I'm done. I want out before the floor hits. I don't want to have the next Todd Gurley or whatever. I get that logic, especially in March as we are now, where it's like, I don't need a roster right now. I'd rather have value. But at the same time, if somebody is willing to sell Henry for the 201, I'll take that in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? Like, it's always about the price. It's always about the value.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, there's one from earlier in February. It looked interesting. Derrick Henry or Terry McLaurin and Isaiah Spiller?
Probably McLaurin just for insulation's sake. But I feel like scoring-wise, it's probably Henry for at least this year. And even then, we don't know what's going to happen with Washington and what their team's going to look like right now.
Yeah, and there's another one
without Wentz
where it's actually, Justin, what do you think of that one?
I think I'd rather have Terry.
I lean that way, but I also don't know what the hell's going on in Washington. So
that's true.
Sam Howell's actually the starter.
I think it seems to be that's the way it's trending. I really think Sam is going to be starting the year, but we still got another
scary on its own, right?
Still another 2 months before we figure out landing spots, so maybe not.
Yeah. And then there's 2 other ones here where I would totally call Derrick Henry a sell. Seeing these, there's one Derrick Henry for the 106.
Hell yeah, 106.
And Derrick Henry for Chris Godwin in the 210. I'm taking Godwin in the pick all day there.
But that's kind of why he was my sell, because his name value is still there. I think a lot of people expect him to have a great 2023. If you're one player away, if you're a win now team, that 106 is obviously still win nowable to me. Godwin is still win now. I mean, it's kind of an interesting pivot, especially in February. So yeah, I mean, I get some of that logic, but give me those picks.
I
I'll
just
take the
think in
value.
most of my leagues, you're not getting that kind of value for Derrick
No,
Henry.
and
Yeah.
it's the classic not in my league, right?
Yeah.
But this
Right.
also is a good spot to remind people that you don't know that, right? You go send that offer. I can't tell you how many times I've listened to Trade Addicts or I've listened to the Wall Street guys, obviously to DTC, right? And I'm listening to some of these things and they're talking about values. I'm like, I did not even think of that as a close value. Like I'm just so far out of touch with that player because you can't keep track of every player. It's just impossible, which is why I like the calculator because it helps kind of bring it to mind of here's what people are valuing. Okay, I'm fine to trade Derrick Henry for the 107. I would never have sent that without looking at that. So
And see, this
you never
is
know.
why I have him as a potential buy. And there's another league. This is the 25th, so just in this last week. I guess they haven't rolled over yet because it doesn't have a pick number. But Derrick Henry for a 2023 second, even if that's 201, I'm
That's
doing
what I'm
that all
saying.
day.
Gladly. Oh, yeah. Running backs are tricky. I'm telling you. In March off season, running backs are tricky. But before we move on to someone else, I want to make sure we cover a little bit more of the Titans. Rocky, is there anyone on this team that you're holding that you feel like has still got some room to grow on their value?
I mean, I don't really love most of the rest of these pieces. Maybe Justin had mentioned him maybe as a possible buy. Maybe Chig Okonkwo. I do like what we saw out of him last year, and I do feel like for some people, he's being maybe pushed up a little more than he should be, given off of what he did last year. I know I've definitely heard a little bit of not hype, but just pushing Okonkwo up a little bit as this kind of potential rising, tight end one, and we haven't really seen that yet. So I don't know that I necessarily want to buy him, but I don't know that I want to sell him either. I don't want to sell him for a second.
Right.
You're not obviously getting it first. So, and most people who drafted him, it is a profit if you sell him for a second. Most people that drafted Okonkwo did not draft him in the second round. So I get it if you do want to sell him for a second, but I'd kind of like, he's a tight end who we saw flashes from in his rookie year. And, tight ends never produce year one pretty much.
Right.
So I'd rather just hold him, I think, rather than buy or sell if I have him. And kind of see where it goes from here. Even this next year might not be great, but year 3 could be if things improve as they go on.
Well, and tight end is such a hellscape these days. It's like you've got the top 3 and then 30 guys that can be tight end 4. Like honestly, like if you got a chance at one, you might as well hold. I like that logic. Justin, what about you? Any thoughts on Chig?
Yeah, I mean, I dig him. I feel like he was like the chalk in DFS one week and he hit, and then everyone's like, this guy is incredible. Oh my god. And like, I don't know. The Titans as a whole we're already like 3rd from the bottom in pass rate over expectation last year. They're not going to change this year for any reason. I mean, holding them or maybe buying a Okonkwo and with your eyes on like the 2025 season or something would be great. But I mean, I don't know. It's just a hold, honestly. I guess you could buy if you were contending and you're desperate and just flush with late second round picks or something like that.
Right. Or like a consolidation. You've got 2/3, something like that where,
right.
I'm not going to make those picks. I don't care. I do think it's interesting. Chig, I got him in one league. I just looked it up because I was curious. I got him at the 5'10" in one league. So he has a 5th round rookie pick. Like that's about as deep
fantastic.
as you go. And so, I mean, again, if I'm selling them for a second, that's profit, right? Like
that's a huge
I'm not
profit,
doing
right?
that, but I'm fine to hold too.
I have a bunch of Chig shares, and almost all of them were in the 4th round. It was rare to see him go earlier than the 4th round anywhere last year.
Yeah, I actually got him in TA1 at 512. So again, like very last pick of the rookie draft, right? Which we're not even doing 5th round picks, I think, anymore in trade addicts leagues. So it's not even possible to do a 512 anymore. The last ever 512 in TA1 was Chig Okonkwo. How appropriate.
The true Mr. Irrelevant.
Yes,
that's right. Well, he became relevant.
Right.
I did want to say, because you kind of hit on it, Justin, I wanted to fill in a little more about Malik Willis as my hold. I did draft Malik. I think a lot of people drafted Malik with their first quarterback off the board kind of pick in the draft last year, and it was not the greatest year for Malik Willis or the Titans in general. And obviously Tannehill, I think obviously is the right word here, he's coming back. He's going to be on that roster. He's getting a good amount of money. If the team's not going to be winning and they don't really care about Tannehill, sure, maybe they throw him out there, but I don't know why you would. I would say you have to have Malik play some. I think you want to see what you have here and kind of see if you need to get crazy. I wish they would have played him more last year for that exact same reason. So for me, I think Malik is a hold. And I honestly, it's hard to say. It depends on how active your league is. But I feel like most of the times, I don't remember a single trade with Malik in it all year. Let's put it that way. I don't remember trading for him or sending him in any of my own, but I don't remember seeing it come up in my email or anything. Like whoever, and this is just a guess, but whoever drafted Malik probably still has Malik. They're probably going to continue to have Malik, right? They're going to just say, hey, I invested a first round pick. It's that sunk cost fallacy. I'm going to write it out. That's what's going through my brain. It's a little projection, but also just kind of like, screw it. Might as well. That happens with first round picks. They can't all be winners, but I'm not selling Malik for a third or whatever, like a late second. Like what's the point? I might as well hold on. He's still a quarterback that could be a starter. So that was kind of my thought process on having him as my hold. And again, Justin nailed it with the you got to squint with this team. Like this is just a brutal roster for fantasy to kind of go up and down and go, man, they should be good. Like Derrick Henry's a name. He should be awesome. Treylon Burks was a first round pick that they traded the AJ Brown for. I mean, like that Treylon Burks, I think, has got a ton of talent. Everybody last year coming in, he was a number 1 or 2. I mean, this team should be great. And it's just like blah. So maybe this is the year, right? Maybe this is the time.
Yeah, the Malik thing, he just scares the hell out of me. Like they started Josh Dobbs over him last year when they were trying to go for the playoffs. And I get he was a rookie, but they felt that poorly about him that they poached Detroit's practice squad for Josh Dobbs in a pivotal late
during the season. Like just wow. Yeah. And I remember doing this kind of move. If you're looking at it on YouTube, I'm just like, what is happening? When I saw that, I was just like, what are we doing? Like, no, like let Malik play.
I did just actually recently trade Malik in the league. You can tell me what you think. I thought it was the smash, except that me and Jerry O'Shea, who's in Dynasty Junkies 1, co-manage this team. It's actually the Fantasy Timeline fellow DAP network show. Perfect. And traded. This was actually offered to us: the 112 Malik and Isaiah McKenzie for Derek Carr and Dalvin Cook.
Smash, yeah, Derek Carr and Dalvin Cook for sure.
Not even that I love either of those other two players, but
the 112 is an unknown. Malik's an unknown. What was the receiver? Unknown.
Isaiah McKenzie.
Yeah, like I'm not worried about that. Yeah, so like,
and we earned that one. That's our 112 too. So
brag a little. Okay, fine. What about you, Justin? You on the same side there?
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do with them? For the trade? Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no question.
Carr and Cook, right?
Yeah.
And if I can do a trade like that, happy to. Maybe that's the answer to this. Is maybe he's a hold until you can find somebody willing to overpay for him, or someone who's super optimistic. Maybe that's the answer. See if there who was right behind you last year that missed on him. Maybe that guy really wants him. I don't know.
and I get getting out on those two players, but I'd want a little more back, even at this point in the offseason for Derek Carr and Dalvin Cook than just but to me that's basically the 112 and the hope of Malik Willis, and I'm not sure that hope ever pans out.
Well, if you're getting a quarterback back, I mean that's a slam dunk to me. And then Cook, obviously everybody's done with him for some reason, but I'm not. I think Cook still has some left in the tank, at least for this year. If Derrick Henry does, so does Dalvin Cook. But with that, we'll move on. And unless there's any other thoughts on Titans, do you guys have any other Titans, or have we talked about them way too much already?
Way too much.
Well, get ready for the next one. Then we've got the Indianapolis Colts coming up next. Another team full of players that are in the fantasy football realms. Anyway, we got ranked by
they exist.
Ranked by cap number 1, Matt Ryan. Oh man, Matt Ryan, what could have been or what had been. Number 2 on the list, tight end Mo Alley Cox. This is going to be an interesting one. Running back Jonathan Taylor, wide receiver Michael Pittman, wide receiver Alec Pierce, tight end Jelani Woods, and running back Zach Moss. Their only real free agent of note was Paris Campbell, and I put that with note, I guess, in quotes. If you're listening or watching, it's some quote fingers all around that one because I don't know if Paris Campbell ever became relevant. And I don't know if he comes back. But I guess, Justin, I'll kick it to you first on this one. Any of these Colts players that you're actively pursuing and adding to your roster as a buy for this week?
I'd be interested to see how the Jonathan Taylor owner felt about Jonathan Taylor. Presumably not incredibly positive right now, but Same thing with Pittman as well. I mean, it was such a disappointing season. There's still some upside with both those guys. I mean, I'd kick the tires on Pierce too. These are just two back-to-back awful. This is just a bad division, I guess.
I know it's a bad.
Yeah,
that's why.
pretty
That's
much.
why. Yeah.
Aren't
that's
you
why
glad
we're
you
just
came
like,
on this week, Justin?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's a good
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, okay. So to kind of paraphrase, and I think maybe this is where my head was going, and it just sort of came to me. They're all buys because they're all cheap. They're all depressed. This whole
Right.
team is kind of like, I don't know, basement. It's like dollar bin shopping. You know what I mean? Like Jonathan
Right.
Taylor even is seen a price fall, and he's by far
Yeah.
the best asset on this team. Michael Pittman's the second best, and I don't know. I mean, I've been trying to acquire Pittman because I think he can only get better, but that's not always true. If they don't
Pierce
get a
is interesting
quarterback,
to me.
yeah,
Yeah,
Pierce
they
is
don't- I
definitely
mean-
interesting. Yeah, but if they
Right.
don't get a quarterback, which I think they will, I think almost everybody believes that they will, or they'll trade up or whatever. That could change everything. So that's why I was going to say they're all buys because that hasn't happened yet. I don't think Matt Ryan is the QB there for this season. If not, I mean, again, he might get cut before the season even starts. But
Yeah.
even if he's a backup to
Probably
whatever
Will
rookie
Levis.
they take, yeah, I think it's going to be
Levis,
Levis as well. And I think that's going to, even just on name value, that'll boost all these guys. So I think this is kind of one of those 2 steps ahead kind of move where I'd be willing to buy any Colts player. And then when they draft a real quarterback, and no offense, Matt Ryan, he's better than I'll ever be a quarterback. But when they get a real quarterback on that team, that's when you sell on that boost, right? That's when you sell on that pump. And you're like, all right, I'm good, I'm out. So that's why they were kind of
Is
all
Will
buys
Levis
for
a
me.
real quarterback though?
Well, I'm being generous with it, but there are a lot of real quarterbacks in this draft. And if that's the one they decide to go with, I mean, they're doing it professionally. I'm just talking about it on a Thursday night with a couple of you guys, right? Like, what do I know? So as much as we think we know what's going on, we don't, neither did they. But if they trust their guy, they're trading up to get someone, they must know something I don't know. I'm willing to sell on the name value. I'm not willing to wait until the season. I'm saying sell on that hype. That's all you got to do. Because I think you could get a pretty good bump out of that. Even, I don't know if it'd be a full round difference. Like, I don't think you're going to get Michael Pittman for a second and sell him for a first. I don't think that's going to happen. But you might be able to do something like that with Pierce, where you buy him for a third and sell him for a second. You know what I mean? Like, I could see something like that happening. I think Jelani Woods is an interesting name. Mo Alley Cox is kind of interesting, but I think Jelani Woods is an interesting name in tight end premium. Again, all of these guys to me are buys. It's kind of a cop out, but they're just that bad and that low. And I think they're only going to go up. So that's kind of my rant on that. Rocky, what about you? Any of these players a buy for you?
I like the mention of Jelani Woods because he's so cheap and he's an athletic guy and he didn't do much last year. I mean, you could probably get him for like a late third or something like that. I don't mind, and I don't even know that I would go out and try and buy Jelani Woods by himself, but you can have him thrown in for the value of a late third into a bigger trade or something like that.
Exactly.
And maybe he pans out, maybe he doesn't, but it doesn't really matter either way because you got whatever other pieces you got in that trade. So the only other guy I would even consider, I agree that in a way that a lot of these guys are buys, but maybe Pittman in the right league, I could see being a sell. I still think he has a lot of name value, and I'm not sure that we're going to see him be much better than he's been so far. I mean, he was, I was looking at it in Trade Addicts, which is basically just basic PPR. He was like 13.6 points a game last year. And which was wide receiver 25. So, I mean, he's probably a little higher than that, maybe with the right situation. But again, if he has a rookie quarterback, wide receivers historically do not perform well with rookie quarterbacks. So no matter how good they are. So, I mean, obviously there are exceptions, but I think everyone's still pretty, I mean, he's in going into year 4, I believe. And everyone still perceives him. Yeah. Is it year 3 or year 4?
Year. I can look that up, but I think it's his 3rd year.
Okay. Well, either way, I mean, he's still perceived as this potential still growth here. And I think we may be just seeing he is what he is.
This is his 4th year. He's 25, was in the 2020 draft. You're correct. So he's a 4th year receiver. Interesting.
And that just may be what he is, like a wide receiver 2 with occasional boom games, which isn't bad. But I think the perception is that he could still be a wide receiver 1, and I'm not sure we ever see that.
And that's fair. I mean, I think if you're selling,
it has to be certain. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it has to be the right league, the right guy. Like a lot of people, I think might think like I'm saying right here, but I definitely think there's people out here who still love Pittman.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going to go next. Like, if I'm talking about selling any of these players, you got to look at it like, well, I always look at it like, well, whose value is going to go down? If sell now, get out before you lose value. What would you sell Pittman for right now, Rocky? Like, what is it you'd be looking for if you have Pittman just in a vacuum, like in a random league, not necessarily a specific team build? Just like if you have Pittman, what would you want in return for Pittman to sell him?
I mean, in terms of like, we usually talk in picks. So in terms of picks, I would definitely some sort of first. If I could get like the 110, 109 for Pittman,
would a 24 first do it? Like a random 24 first? Would that be enough?
I might try and get a little bit of top on a random 24 first. So yeah, maybe like a 24 first and a second round value player, something like that.
Right. Like a Chigankonkwo or something.
There you go. Yeah.
Right?
Chigankonkwo, yes. Maybe a little better than Jelani Wood. So yeah, Chigankonkwo.
That's why I wasn't going to say Jelani. That's not right. A little more, just a little. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I would, especially the 24. I mean, we say this about every class, but the 23 class was supposed to be good. The 24 class is supposed to be very good as well. A lot of nice pieces in there. So, and if it's, a lot of people think their 24 first is going to be good. It doesn't always work out that way. So, yeah, I think you could end up with a really, really nice piece if that team ends up like the 104 or something like that. So I think I would move off him for, like I said, I would try and get a plus just because I think that's where his value is, that if you're waiting a year out, you should probably get a little bit on top of that 24 first. But I would be willing to do that.
Well, and I think you're on the right track here, but I think it's interesting that Pittman is only slightly valued more than Derrick Henry and Treylon Burks and the 107. Like he's actually valued at the 107. And I think that's interesting because, again, just like we said with the other two players for Tennessee, I'd rather have the 107, I think. Right? Like just
definitely.
It's a reroll. It's a solid class. I think that there's some potential for these guys. Even at the 107, you can get a Jordan Addison or a Quentin Johnston, depending on how things go. I wouldn't mind that, right? Depending on the right landing spot and all that stuff.
And
but
even if you don't like them, you could potentially get Levis or Richardson there,
True.
And who may have more value than Pittman in a year.
Yep. No, that's a fair point too. And that's kind of where I think, again, not slamming any of this. It's not that the calculator is wrong. It's just that's where the market is. Okay, good to know. I think that's where you can exploit this a little bit and be like, all right, well, let's take this information and do stuff with it. That's kind of the whole point of these calculators is saying, here's what we believe the market to be. There is no real answer. I mean, calculators are all doing their best to guess. They're all trying their damnedest to find out what the market is. But even that is going to be wrong in your league. Your league is not included in this, right? This is an aggregate. It's ADP. That only helps in certain situations to talk generally. If you have to take, if you're selling Pittman and you have to take a 110, I'd do that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to get too bent out of shape. But that kind of pivots into the last part. And I'll let you go next on this one, Justin. But for me, the only real hold was Jonathan Taylor. And again, as a running back, it's kind of odd to say that. I'm not acquiring him right now. Again, everyone on this team is kind of a buy for me. But I feel like Jonathan Taylor is one of those players that you're not going to get full value for. It's just not going to happen right now. And again, like every other answer, I'd rather hold Taylor and see where the season goes. But I guess, Justin, what are your thoughts on Pittman, Taylor, any of these other guys as a hold? Anyone you're excited about heading into 23?
Excited is a little aggressive. I don't know if I'm excited about anyone here.
It is, yeah.
But I mean, I see where you're coming from with JT. I mean, what are you going to sell a possible blue chip 2023 to 2024 running back for like the one? I mean, where is he? Like,
no one's going to give up the 104. You know what I mean? Like that's
right.
That's not really going to happen. I don't think in most leagues. Not right now. And after yet, I mean, if you can, great, right?
Yeah, and then Pittman's kind of looking at like the more advanced metrics on Pittman last year. I don't think it's going to get any better than that. He had like a 26% target share. He almost hit 100 receptions, and he still will. What we'd say he was only the wide receiver 25. Like,
oof.
Yeah, I guess he's a hold too. Like, yeah.
Yeah, this team is just brutal. Yeah. That's the title of the episode, Rocky. This division sucks. Yeah, we totally agree. I think what's weird though, and I said this earlier, but this division is just full of rebuilding teams. That's really what this is. Is that, and I think there is some value at least in looking at some of these cheaper or declining assets, only because Derrick Henry, again, prime case for someone you could buy for a year. Jonathan Taylor, depressed asset, but I'm not selling. It's the same kind of logic, but the other end. He's young. He could rebound. I mean, we were
Yeah.
talking Jonathan Taylor last year is the 101 worth 3 firsts, and just a year later he's worth the 103 or whatever it is. Like he's just worth 1 first. And I think a lot of that is the value of the class. A lot of that is his bad year and the injuries and all this. A lot of it is the team not being good. Like it's amazing how much things can change, right? That's ultimately what all of this is. So with that in mind, things can change the other way too, right? If they go get Will Levis and they, let's say they trade for, I don't know, go get DeAndre Hopkins in a trade or something too. Like this team becomes immediately better. It would just 2 things changing. It doesn't.
That would be super interesting, actually.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Like things like that happen every year. It's you never know who it's going to be. So it's like if you're telling me I can buy a lottery ticket and buy Michael Pittman for a 111, I'm probably doing that just to be like, hey, let me have a ticket to that ride because it could be entertaining. And so these teams are all kind of in that same boat. They stink in a way. But for Dynasty, these are all opportunities, right? And I know that's kind of like a buzzword in a way. Like you don't have any issues. You just have opportunities, right? These are just opportunities to excel, opportunities to change and increase. It's like a manager talking to you at your review, right? Like these are like all of these teams. I'm looking at it like, well, you all have a lot of opportunities to grow, right? Because you're all at the bottom of your value. That is something we like to exploit in Dynasty. Everybody wants to buy low and sell high. All of these teams are that kind of player. Right. Anyone else, I guess, Rocky, before we move on, anyone else you want to talk about on the Colts, or have we, again, done enough talking about how great this team is?
No, let's try and get this division over with.
Let's do it. All right. Last up, we've got the lovable Houston Texans. As if you thought we were done. No, we've got another team full of studs. This one was actually hard for me to even list this many. Here's the ranked by cap hit. You've got Brandon Cooks, John Mechie, Dameon Pierce, and I put Brevin Jordan because I was just curious. Like, it's got to be more.
Nico Collins, Andrew?
I did not put Nico Collins. I don't know if he even plays. Free agent. I put
no
Jordan
Chris
Akins.
Moore?
No Chris Moore. I didn't put
Chris Moore. I forgot. Oh my god.
There was another receiver that I could have put, and I'm like, no, I don't think I'm putting that one. I don't know if Mills is their quarterback anymore. Like we just don't know. This team is the most. This team is the most rebuilding team in the NFL right now. This is the bottom of the barrel, which is already a really bad barrel. So yeah, with that intro in mind, Justin, I'll kick it to you first. Is there anyone on this team that you want even on your roster right now?
Amari Rogers, probably. Is he still
fair
over
point.
there?
Yeah, he's still there.
Go get him. Yep. I mean, Dameon Pierce did as much as he could with how little he was offered last year. So maybe they're better this year. Brandon Cooks still wants out, as far as I know. I haven't heard anything different.
Can you blame him?
He's been complaining about it for like 9 months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess he's leaving. We didn't get to see what John Mechie gets to do. So hopefully we actually find out this year. That feels like forever ago. I don't remember. He's like a slot guy, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah. Fast dude, but just he got a cancer, I think, right? Wasn't that why he had to take the year off?
Yeah. So as far as buys, like I would buy Dameon Pierce if I was desperate if I was in like a points per carry league and I was desperate.
What would you send in picks for Dameon Pierce? Like give or take about the value. What are you thinking?
Like a very early second.
I don't mind that. Rocky, you on that same page?
That makes sense.
Yeah, I know. I don't think I'd give any first for Pierce, especially now because given his draft capital last year, I know he played well, but I don't think he'll be replaced because I don't think they should be too concerned about running back right now. At least not by a significant day 2 type guy.
Right.
But it's still possible, and it's hard to imagine him doing any better than last year because this team is so bad and now they're going to have a rookie and all this stuff. So I'm definitely not giving it first, but if I could get him for an early second, I would definitely consider that. I still think I'd maybe put him in the hold category right now just because of draft concern. Like couple years ago, we didn't think James Robinson, who was much better than Dameon Pierce has been even, and we didn't think he was going to get replaced, but he was also a guy that didn't have a lot invested in him, and they drafted Travis Etienne. So, and now we see where James Robinson is, my boy James Robinson, where he is now. So, but yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to buy or sell or hold anybody on this team, to tell you the truth.
You're just abstaining from the vote. You're like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm just
I
boycotting.
mean, none of them are worth enough
I'm
to
out.
sell.
right.
And I'm not dying to buy any. I don't really want to buy any of these guys. And even, I mean, maybe from a hold standpoint, Cooks, because I mean, especially if he goes to another team, I still think, I know he's getting up there in age, but I still think he can produce if he's with the right situation. I mean, he produced some last year, even with the crap situation he was in. So if he ends up somewhere else where like maybe goes to even like say the Giants or something like that. I mean, I could, someplace that needs a receiver, he could still be that wide receiver too that nobody wants because he's old and he's on the Giants.
What if he goes to the Chargers? What if they do get rid of Keenan and they bring in Brandon
I mean, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that'd be wild.
But as is, I'm not sure I want to buy him on that speculation. But if I have him, maybe I could consider him a hold. That's about it. Everybody else, these guys can all go in the trash bin as far as
so for you, Rocky, it's on the Texans, buy, sell, hold. Your answer is no.
Exactly.
Like, no, I'm not doing any of this.
Pass.
I appreciate it. It's terrific content, Rocky. Thank you for that. I do want to say, to kind of echo what you guys are saying here too. I think the for me anyway, the hold is Dameon Pierce. I don't see them replacing him. I think they're going to feel like they struck gold with the value on that pick. I think he's going to be the running back next season. I think that to me makes him a hold because again, I don't like buying running backs this time of year. It's not the thing I do. You tend to get a little bit, I don't know, the people don't want to let him go for what their true value is at this time of year. And then, I don't know, it just gets messy. So Dameon
unless
Pierce
you're getting Dalvin Cook for super cheap.
Right. That's entirely fine. And I don't mind getting someone cheap, but I feel like whoever has Dameon Pierce, even if they spent like a mid-second on him, I don't think they're letting him go for an early second. I don't think they saw what could have been. They've seen the promised land with him.
Yeah.
I know in one league I spent what effectively was a 206, and I traded him for Najee Harris when he was having that speed kind of craziness at the time, and somewhere around the 206 I think I spent for him. And so I traded him straight up for Najee Harris. And I was like, I'm fine with that because I think Harris has more of a stability, even if neither one are doing great right now. And it was right before Dameon Pierce tailed off. But I don't think it's hard to see. It's hard to see that happening every week with Dameon. I also think Cooks is the hold. I think that makes sense just because you might as well wait and see what happens. If you can still get any of these guys, go for it. Oh, I did want to say this. I meant to say this before. What do you think Dameon Pierce is worth in the calculator, Rocky? I know you were kind of talking about it before. What would be your guess? Is he worth a first or not?
My guess is he's worth a very late first.
He's basically the 112. Yeah,
okay.
He's basically the 112. And you were saying like I would do an early second, but not a late first. And it's kind of like that. I mean, what's the difference between the 112 and the 201? Like, maybe I'll do it. I don't know. I would still probably hold.
That one in front of it means a little more to a lot more people, and I could probably get something better than Dameon Pierce for the 112 as compared to even the 201 because it has a 1 in front of it.
You're not wrong, and that perceived value is important, especially when it comes to picks, because people look at that like it's a first. It's actually, this is maybe a sidebar topic. I don't know if we've gotten much into this. I think Scott and I have talked about this before. I think it was last year even. Sometimes the 112 can be useful for those players that are worth 2 firsts. And so you can do like 112 and a 24 first for someone like that you think is worth 2 firsts. One of those not premium players, but like a Jonathan Taylor or something like that. Like that's where a 112 can really be valuable because, like you said, it's got the 1 in front of it, right? No, I'm giving you 2 firsts. I'm giving you 2 firsts.
Yep.
And I earned the 112. I'm dominating. It's probably going to be the 112 next year, but that's still 2 firsts. That's what you wanted. Like it kind of makes a difference. Yeah, no, you're entirely right. I think we've covered the Texans enough. I mean, you could even argue we've covered them too much, and we've only been talking about them for 8 minutes or so. So that sounds about right. But is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up with regard to the Texans, or we good?
Yeah, Jacoby Myers.
Jacoby Myers is on the Texans?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
He's about to be.
Oh, well, now, if you want to get into speculation city and just go down the rabbit hole of like all these players that could be a fun topic. But I like to go
maybe actually is Bryce Young or CJ Stroud the buy on the Texans?
Actually, right, that's a valid argument. Hang on, that's a valid argument.
I'm holding Bryce Young. I'm holding.
Or let's say they get Bryce Young. Let's say that's their pick, right? And they get Bryce Young. Does that do anything to anyone on this offense? Does that even give them a boost worth selling? I don't think it does. That's what's so weird. It does for me and the Colts, but not for the Texans because they're just that bad. Like it's just there's nobody flashy here, right? Like it's even if they get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud and that's their pick and we know who they got and they don't draft a running back, I don't see that changing Dameon Pierce's value really at all. Like it's just that they're that bad. They're not one piece away. They're 8 pieces away.
And by the way, how much do like Texans fans must they hate Lovie Smith? Like the end of last year, they went hard for that win in the last. I think they went for a 2-point conversion or something.
Oh, that's right.
And they won.
and they won the game.
Them the first pick.
And it cost them the first pick of the draft.
You know what though? There is this weird. We'll have to see how this plays out because there's this weird thought that I had. Like, what if Lovie Smith saved him? Right? What if the first pick is the Bears and they trade out and the Colts jump up and take Will Levis and the Texans are like, well, we were never going to take him anyway, right? Like it might not matter. At the other end, it could be that the Colts jump up and take Bryce Young and he just ends up being a dud and the Houston Texans settle for CJ Stroud, which is the next Tom Brady, right? Like you don't know the butterfly effect. So as much as we want to say that hurt him, logically it did. There is still an optimistic side to be like, maybe they're okay. But they have a long way to go. So I guess in Dynasty, I like to play in a 3-year window. And I don't know if any of these players are even going to be on this team next year, let alone 3 years. It's just that's bleak for a team. Not ideal. Anyway, with that, we're going to move into our final segment and what I would think is the most fun segment of the night. It's our Find Me a Trade segment. This week is brought to us by Steve Munger. I know he's in our Dynasty Junkies 2 league, I think, right?
Yes.
All right, so this is a Dynasty League. It's a Safe Leagues Dynasty League. His team name is Already Forgot My Team Name, which, again, is when I first read that, I was like, wait, is it because he forgot his team name? Or no, that is the actual team name. Okay, good. Oh, and before I forget.
Find me a trade. Yes. Find me a trade. Find me a trade.
I just think it should be a chant. I just think it's so perfect because it's just got that rhythm to it. Anyway, so find me a trade. That's what we're doing.
You want me to do the rest of the settings?
Yeah, go for it, and I'll pull up the team.
Pull up the roster.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, like you said, it's a Safe Leagues, 12-team, Superflex PPR, 2.0 tight end premium, 6-point passing touchdowns, -4 for interceptions, 38 roster spots, no IR taxi. I don't know if that's just now because it's the
Safe Leagues usually don't have taxi and
okay,
IR.
Yeah, I'm not in
Safe Leagues are pretty
okay.
Yeah, they're pretty straightforward.
Yep, so 38 roster spots though, big roster. Start 10, QB, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex, and of course the super flex spot. And Justin's it's because you didn't change it on the sheet.
I didn't.
Steven's thoughts here on his team. He said he just took over this orphan. The team is in good shape at wide receiver, has Kelsey at tight end, has all 4 of their draft picks at the 5 spot, plus the 107. So he's got 2 firsts as well. It could use at least 1 good QB there. We'll get into the roster in a minute. Not much at running back. Fine piecing that together later. Which is funny because I think we all did trades for running backs. So, but looking at the league history, it seems to be a pretty active league. I'm up for trading anyone, but really would like to hold on to Amon-Ra St. Brown. This is my only share. And the goal was to make this a solid playoff contender in 2023.
Perfect. So the roster isn't terrible. I've seen worse. So I like where this one has some potential. Quarterback, he's got Russell Wilson, Trey Lance, Jordan Love, and Andy Dalton. I mean, I think Jordan Love's the starter in Green Bay. I think San Francisco goes with Trey Lance. So that's 3 starters. None of them are QB1s, probably, unless Russell Wilson remembers how to play quarterback. So that's an interesting spot there for me. I don't think Andy Dalton's a starter, just to be clear. Running back, you've got a bunch of names that are interesting, I guess. Darrell Henderson, Samaje Perine, James Robinson, like we were talking about.
Interesting is one word to describe.
Well, I mean, interesting because it's like none of these are starters, but like they're all names you've heard of. They're all on, like I've got so many shares of all of these guys on my benches. I wouldn't want to start any of these guys. So you're not wrong there, Steve. These are some patchwork running backs. Receivers, strong spot in my opinion. You got Amon-Ra, like you mentioned, Treylon Burks, Brandon Cooks, Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, Jacoby Myers, the new Houston Texans player, apparently. Justin, breaking news tonight. I like that. Wan'Dale Robinson and the shell of Michael Thomas still on the roster. I've got a few shares of Thomas too, just in case. Tight end behind Kelsey, who he mentioned. He's got Foster Moreau, Cameron Brate, Peyton Hendershot, and Jonnu Smith. So I think receiver is the strongest group here. I don't hate quarterback. Tight end, obviously, with Kelsey is solid, but there are a lot of needs at running back. And I think, again, with the way this team is set up, there's some potential. So maybe, Justin, we'll go with you first because Rocky's right. We all traded for running backs. Even though the guy said, I'm fine doing it later, all of us are like, we don't generally acquire running backs this offseason.
Right.
But that's what we're going to recommend. Don't do as I say, do as I do. But yeah, go ahead, Justin. What was your trade?
Oh, I just wanted to talk more about the Texans. So I thought could send,
please.
he could send the quarterbackless Mike Evans over to who I believe this Red Tails team who won the league last year, and then take his Dameon Pierce and then swap like a 305 for a 312. Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, I like it.
I think that might be the best comment a guest has ever given on their final trade. I don't know.
I just want to get this guy a running back because, I mean, I feel it almost. I mean, however many dynasty teams I have, probably 80% of them have a running back room that looks a lot like this pile of running backs here. So I feel it. And nothing's worse than heading into week 3. Like,
I can tell you, Steven though is definitely a guy who doesn't like. He backs that. He is basically a 0 RB kind of guy. He's like collect all those backup running backs. A couple of them will eventually be, at various times will be useful to me. And I know he's not too big on acquiring running backs, even though we just gave him a bunch of running back trades.
Well, we're trying to help him out,
3
right?
for 3. Yeah.
And it's just
trying to help him think outside of his typical
box. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So there's that. I mean, it could be interesting. I don't know. Mike Evans could collapse at any time. Who doesn't want a top 30 running back in Dameon Pierce?
Well, here. So I'll take this and run with it for a second. So I think Mike Evans for Dameon Pierce for me feels like Mike Evans should be the obvious side in that. But the longer I thought about it, because I saw this on the sheet when we started, and I've been thinking about it a little bit in the back of my head. I'm like, you know what? That's not a bad play. That he doesn't have a quarterback. Godwin's coming up. Like, are they going to go with Kyle Trask? Are they going to go get someone? Like, there's so many question marks with Mike Evans right now. I mean, he's not young. I mean, he's gotten over 1,000 yards every year, but that's bound to stop at some point. And writing seems to be on the wall. And like we just talked about, Dameon Pierce almost locked into that job. I don't hate this trade at all. I think it actually makes total sense.
I think I prefer the Evans side of that trade, but I will say I think value-wise, it's fine. Like, you're not getting a first for Mike Evans at this point. Like, he's too old in this dynasty landscape to get. And like Justin said, no quarterback, no idea who it's going to be. And like I said, I think the best you're getting from Mike Evans, like if you're just going pick straight up, is probably like the 201, which is around what I was talking for Dameon Pierce. So I think that the value is fine. I guess I just believe more in Mike Evans than Dameon Pierce. And I think both of these guys might only have 1 or 2 years of legit value in terms of points or actual trade value left. So even though Dameon Pierce is significantly younger, like I said, I don't, like you said, I think he's locked in for next year, but I definitely think there's danger by 2024. Like somebody's replacing Dameon Pierce in the backfield.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong there. I just think at least for this season, like Dameon Pierce is a perfect kind of running back for this roster, in my opinion, because it's not an expensive running back, but he's an every week starter. And again, we all are kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little, but we're all trading for running backs. And I think part of that is, at least the reason I did it, maybe you guys are different, but this is a start 2 running back league. In a start 2 running back league, I at least like to have one that I don't mind clicking the box on, right? Like give me one and then I'll filter the other one. But having to start 2 from the group that he had, I would be nervous.
I can tell you one of the big reasons is that group is not even a good, like, I am collecting backup running backs in case of an injury group. That group is really, really, really bad. So, like Ronald Jones is never starting another game in this. I don't care who gets hurt.
Darrell Henderson doesn't even have a team. Like James Robinson might not have a team. You got Isaiah Spiller.
P. Ryan might be the best running back.
Yes,
on the team.
He may not be on the Bengals. Like, it's so weird. Yeah, so I'm with you, and I'll kind of pivot into mine, and then we can pitch it to you for yours, Rocky. But mine was kind of the same trade, which is why I wanted to get into mine next. All of us are kind of similar, but mine was basically the same. Sending Lockett to Blue Cat Lodge for Leonard Fournette and a third or some other throw-in piece. And the logic being here, again, Lockett is old like Evans. He's on his way out of the league, but Fournette doesn't even have a team. He just got cut. There's a chance that whoever has Fournette was like, you know what, I'm renting him for this year. I'm done. He doesn't have a team. That's a smash accept, right? And I think your Evans trade is kind of the same. It's a solid offer. It's one of those offers that you don't immediately reject it, right? And that's what I think this team needs is you got to go get some running back with some upside. I personally think Fournette plays somewhere next year. I think he's still got at least 1 year left in the tank. I think the way that he played last year down the stretch was pretty solid for running back of his age.
Just real quick, Andrew. I heard on one podcast someone just theorizing throughout the idea that maybe he ends up. I can't remember. I wish I remember I heard it. I would attribute it to it, but he goes to the Eagles. I think he would. People would love him if he was an Eagles back next year.
Hell yeah! And I even said it too. Like I think there's a chance that the Bengals cut Mixon and they don't get a running back they like in the draft, and Fournette's still sitting there come mid-May, and they're like, all right, Fournette, come on in. And it's Fournette and Samaje Perine or Fournette and someone else in the Bengals running back room. Like, that'd be solid. You know what I mean? Like, there's a chance that a team that wants to win doesn't have the budget to afford. And Eagles are going to be having this kind of problem too, where they just don't want to pay a big running back. And I think with the way that, Kenneth Gainwell played, you don't need, and same with Perine in a way, you don't need a bell cow. You just need someone to take some of the inside get 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of thing. That's Fournette. And I think he's going to find a home because I don't think he's done yet. I think he's still got some in the tank. So, Justin, what do you think? Was mine too similar to yours, or was that a Lockett for Fournette and a little piece different enough for you to make a different comment on?
No, I think it's very fair. It is different, and Lenny's going somewhere. I mean, whether it's Philly or Cincy or New England or Miami.
I don't think he sits out this year. You know what I mean? Like, I think he plays somewhere.
No.
And
he'll be doing something. He'll be getting goal line carries somewhere. He'll be scoring 10 points a week.
Yeah, and if your roster has Ronald Jones and Dontrell Hilliard on it, I mean, Fournette's better than those guys. You know what I mean? Like, at least you're upgrading a little. And I think a lot of people are just done with Lockett. So, again, same kind of trade as the Mike Evans one. But with that, I guess, Rocky, what was your trade? What was the one you came up with?
So, yeah, I aimed a little bit higher, I guess, than you two, maybe. And like you said, his receiver is kind of his position of strength on this team. I did take one of his few young guys, and I'm moving him because a lot of that receiver room is, other than Amon-Ra, is pretty old. But I went with Traylon Burks, and I did this because I happened to look in both calculators, by the way, that I normally check, DTC and DLF. Burks is rated pretty high and higher than the guy I'm trading for from Team Peeville, which was J.K. Dobbins. So I put J.K. Dobbins in a late second just because I looked, and Peeville has they haven't rolled over yet, so I didn't figure out where they were, but he has 3 seconds, so I'd be fine with even whatever's the latest one. I mainly did it because when I looked at both calcs, Burks was higher in both, so I figured at least throw the initial offer out with the late second. I would probably do it straight up myself. I do like Burks. I did like him coming out, but I think Dobbins is going to. I think Dobbins, if you want production, is going to score this year, and I think because of that, he's going to get a value boost this year. I think it's second year coming off the ACL. We've seen it time after time where guys look okay or good coming off the ACL, but not as great. And then that second year back, like Barkley this past year, that second year back, they get more. They kind of more regain their form and get what we expect from them. So. I like Dobbins as kind of a buy this year, and it's still not obviously too old. He's going into, I believe he's also going to year 4. So yeah, and like you said, he needs a running back of some sort. So and then the two reasons I mentioned one earlier is because that running back room is so atrocious, and also I tried to look for a quarterback trade for him, and I could not find anything. Like, nobody has an excess in this. Like, there's almost always that one team that has like 4 quarterbacks or something like that. And there was just nobody that I felt like wasn't contending and had an old quarterback or had 4 quarterbacks who would be willing to move on from one of them. It was tough to find a quarterback trade.
Well, I just looked this up because I was kind of curious. I'm like, wait a minute, this was submitted like a week or two ago. And I know Safe Leagues rolled over, and they did. I just didn't put down the 2023 link. So he actually, before the rollover happened, he traded the 107 and Robbie Anderson for Trey Lance. So in my mind, that means he's pretty much addressed his
okay.
QB position. So that makes some sense. Because I was feeling a little guilty. I'm like, we didn't, and none of us did a QB trade. Like, what jerks we are. But I think Steve knows that we're jerks because he's listened to us for a while. But
I
also,
tried. I will say that.
I did too. I was going to say the same thing. Like, I did look and I couldn't find anything that made sense with the receivers that he had. I was like, I don't really want to give up Burks for a quarterback. And because at that point, it's going to have to be a lower quarterback. I love trading 107 for Lance, though. I think that's a terrific trade. I think that's actually a really smart way to do that. So he does have the 105 still to play and can get a receiver there, or maybe gets Gibbs or something falls, and that'd be kind of nice. Which would be, again, for this team, you could use it, or you could trade back and try to accumulate picks, which is always the answer. That being said, too, you mentioned the late second. Peeville does have 3 seconds. He's got the 201, the 202, and the 210. So in theory, it would be like the 210 would be a late second. That could work, right? So Burks and for Dobbins in the 210. I think that's a valid option. I think some people are kind of down on Dobbins. They're higher on Burks. Maybe it's the opposite. Worth an ask to this team. I know Sidlow's in a bunch of different dynasty leagues with safe leagues. I'm in a couple myself. Some of them are very active. Some of them are not. And so ultimately, this league doesn't look terribly active from what I could tell in the trade history and everything. But again, if you can find someone who's willing to make a move before the draft, go for it. Obviously you just made a trade with Trader Joe, who obviously friend of the pod and things like that. So I think that there is some value in this and just being like, I don't mind sending Burks and getting a pick and all that and trying to figure it out, but you don't have to, right? Like, I think at this point, if you're okay just to kind of hang on and you're the kind of player that likes to, be risky at running back and wait, I think that's fine too. I don't think you have to make a trade for running back, even though all three of us, that was what we came up with. So
I'm curious before we finish up, Justin, where are you at on Dobbins and what do you think of this trade?
I was looking at Dobbins to trade for before I went and found Pierce. No, I think because he probably does have a depressed cost, that he's an interesting guy to price check on in leagues. I think he's a boomer bust guy. He could come out and have an incredible 2023, or he could have something flare up again. But especially for someone who's kind of going boomer bust with their running backs already, like I do in a lot of leagues just like this, I think that's a great person to be aiming for in a setup like this.
Yeah, and one other reason I actually targeted Dobbins too, I looked at that guy's team and it's not very good. So I thought maybe he might want to, sell running backs. He's his best wide receiver is probably, he's got Drake London and then like nothing. He's got Kyle Pitts and then like nothing at tight end, and then he's got Dobbins and David Montgomery and Javonte at running backs. But it doesn't seem like he's a team that's going to contend. So I figured he might want to sell a running back. That's and get the young wide receiver back. Yeah,
right.
There was another trade that I thought about that I can kind of toss in and see what you guys think and see if I was way off. But my first thought, again, with having Kelsey on this team and needing running back, I'm like, maybe you can pivot down from Kelsey and like running back that could be startable in the as that gap filler. And because Kelsey is just such a dominant force. And so whenever I'm trying to trade Kelsey, I always go to the Mahomes manager. I'm like, I got a feeling that Mahomes manager wants a Mahomes Kelsey stack is just dominant. Everybody loves that. So I went to the Mahomes team and I looked at their roster and I was like, all right, who would I trade for here? That roster has Mark Andrews. So I'm like, well, maybe you could tear down to Mark Andrews and get like a Ramondre Stevenson or Tony Pollard who are on this team. And then I was like, God, I don't know if I would do that. I don't know if I would send Andrews and Pollard for Kelsey. You might have to add another piece like a Lockett or something like that to balance it out. And it just got to be a little bit too much work in a way where I'm like, I don't know if that works. I don't know if that balances. And that's when I kind of stripped it down to its studs. And I was like, well, what if I just send Lockett for someone like Fournette? And I'm like, wait, that actually might work. And that was kind of what I went with. But like sending Kelsey, I'd want something like Andrews and Pollard back. You know what I mean? Like I'd want to get something. Andrews disappointed last year. I don't think anybody was really wowed by him. And I think, again, if you're the Mahomes manager, getting that stack, it's got to feel good. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Yeah.
And it's so
any thoughts on that one? Or
yeah, I mean, you almost want something like that. I mean, you do want something like that on the way back. I mean, just speaking from the couple of rosters that I have Kelsey on, it's so nice to just plug him in every week.
Yeah.
That like I don't think I could go from a Kelsey to an Evan Ingram without like a huge piece coming back. Like that would feel so disgusting. So going down just a couple spots or one spot or wherever people have Andrews ranked, yeah, that's a little more palatable.
Well, I know some people have Andrews over Kelsey because of the age, and I get that logic, and I know the calculator in a lot
Yeah.
of places has Andrews rated higher because Kelsey's 33. You know what I mean? But I do think there are some Andrews managers out there that are just maybe kind of fed up. And again, if you're going to go to the Mahomes manager, he might be willing to pay more. And that was kind of where my
Right.
thought was, like, he might be willing to give up Andrews and Pollard for Kelsey and Lockett. You know, one of those kind of like win now type of trades.
Right.
So again, that was kind of my backup. And since none of us really came up with a different trade, I thought maybe I tossed that in here at the end just to kind of give you another idea, Steve, of another build that you might be able to look at. I think it's pretty ballsy too to not really worry about running backs when you have to start two of them, but also
Yeah.
this time of year, who cares? You know, I totally get that. So
It's still so early, right?
Yep, you got lots of time. And again, you've got some of those picks you can play around with too. So I guess with that, Rocky, anything you want to add before we wrap it up tonight?
No, just happy to be back on here with you, Andrew, and I hopefully I'll be on a little more regularly and sort of that more bi-weekly basis going forward.
Sounds good to me. And then Justin, I guess, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. It was great to talk to you tonight. Your first time on the Dynasty Junkies, how was it? Did you have a good time?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Anytime you guys need a blathering idiot on, I'll hop right on.
We'll add you to the list of blathering idiots.
I'm already here, Justin.
Yeah,
so.
it's a long list. Yeah.
Might as well double down.
There you go.
I like it. Well, no, tell everybody again where they can find you on Twitter and everything, and then we'll move over to Rocky to take us out of here.
For sure. Twitter, it's Justin_Redwards. It's just the name Justin Edwards with an R in front of it because there are 10,000 Justin Edwards on the internet. You can find most of my work on 4for4, either their YouTube page or some draft prospect stuff coming out and offensive line stuff throughout the year. And thanks for having me on again, guys. It's been a blast.
Yeah, great to have you. Of course, if you're listening this long and you sat through the terrific teams that we got through, we really appreciate you listening. Make sure you follow us at Dynasty Junkies. Follow the DAP Network at DAP_network. You can watch us go live on Twitter, also live on YouTube. I don't think we're on Twitch yet, right, Rocky? We're not doing that.
We're not doing that.
No, that's too much for the kids. We're too old for that.
Yeah.
But you can find me on Twitter at Andrew Hall FF. You can find Rocky at Dynasty FF Addict on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. Give us all those things. Send us some more Find Me a Trades too. I know this was from Steve from a week or two ago. Haven't really had that many since then. And I know this is a quiet time of year for a lot of leagues, but we really do care about your team. Like Russ always says, we do care about your team. We want to find you a trade. So if you're in a league that you don't want to leave, but you don't know what to do, that's the perfect thing to send in. We've actually done this a long time and have helped a lot of people that are just kind of stuck and stale and stagnant kind of break that ice and get going again. And I think now is the time to do that before the draft, right? Now is the time to kind of catch people sleeping. You might be able to get some discounts. I don't think any of us would advocate trading for a lot of AFC South players. But again, thank you so much for listening that long through that terrific stream of teams. But yeah, it's been a pleasure as always, Justin. Thanks for coming on. And Rocky, if you want to take us out of here, that'd be great.
Yep, I'm also gonna give thanks again to Justin, especially it was short notice. We originally had another guest planned who had an issue come up, so thanks again to him. Thanks to anybody in the chat. I know wasn't as bumping as it sometimes is, but I know Ridley Truther was in here, who's a great DAP Network supporter.
That's right.
Make sure you're checking us out live going forward every Thursday, 9:30 ish. And make sure you come in here. But I guess with that, I'll just say Junkies out.